from the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. emphasized the importance of peace and cooperation between the national government and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region and Muslim Mindanao or BARM as key drivers of the region's steady development. Speaking during the BARM's 7th founding anniversary celebration at the Sharif Kabunsuan Cultural Complex in Cotabato City, President Marcos said progress being experienced in the region is the result of unity, dialogue, and sustained collaboration among stakeholders. The creation of BARM marked a significant chapter in the country's history, he said, noting that it was not only a milestone for Muslim Mindanao but also for the entire Republic of the Philippines. The president cited the gains achieved since the enactment of the Bangsamoro Organic Law in 2018 and the formal inauguration of BARM in 2019. President Marcos said the establishment of BARM demonstrates the collective commitment of the government, the Bangsamoro people, and the international community to peace, unity, and progress. He also noted that the creation of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority or BTA laid the foundation for self-governance in BARM. Over the past years, President Marcos said institutions in BARM have been strengthened and the aspirations of Muslim Filipinos have been supported. The president also underscored the deepening partnership between the national government and the Bangsamoro government, urging regional leaders to align local initiatives with existing national programs to maximize development gains. He made a call as he acknowledged that much more needs to be done. The president reaffirmed the national government's commitment to assist the BARM in expanding livelihood and economic opportunities, raising the standard of living, and ensuring inclusive growth. He also expressed optimism about the region's future, citing visible improvements and a growing sense of hope among residents as peace takes root. Peace remains the foundation of progress, he said, calling on all stakeholders to safeguard the gains achieved through unity and cooperation. President Marcos added that the upcoming BARM elections present an opportunity to strengthen democratic leadership that is accountable and responsive to the people. He urged Bangsamoro leaders to build a system of governance anchored on accountability, participation, and shared responsibility, noting that the BARM has the advantage of shaping institutions that avoid past governance pitfalls.
It marks an important chapter in our nation's history, not just the history of Muslim Mindanao, but of the entire Republic of the Philippines. And it is a landmark in our fight to achieve genuine progress and unity. It is proof that sacrifice, dialogue, and unity are the keys to lasting peace. It shows that public service becomes more meaningful when it is carried out in the spirit of solidarity and collaboration. Take advantage of those national programs. Gamitin ninyo yung mga national program to bring it here to Bangsamoro. And that way, if we work together, as we all know, whenever everybody works together, there is a synergy. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. And so that's what we should do together, and that's what we will always be doing with the Bangsamoro government. My fellow Filipinos, we have come a long way. Still, there is work to be done. Peace is the vital foundation for progress. It is our shared responsibility to harness peace to further develop the region. We aspire to further strengthen a leadership that truly serves the people, one that reinforces democracy and accountability. This is the kind of governance that we should pass on to the next generation. A government rooted in accountability, a system strengthened by participation, and a nation guided by shared responsibility. My fellow Filipinos, we must stand as guardians of the progress that we have made through peace. Let us always choose unity and cooperation over division.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
In related news, the Office of the Presidential Advisor on Peace, Reconciliation, and Unity, or OPAPRU, said the government has turned over about 30 million pesos worth of pamana infrastructure development projects to conflict-affected areas in Barangay Nusa, Balindong, Lanao del Sur. OPAPRU Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. in a statement said these projects aim to convert these locations into hubs of economic resilience. Pamana, or the Payapa at Masaganang Pamayanan, is the agency's flagship development program for conflict-affected areas. Galvez led the turnover of development projects which include a fish landing port worth 15 million pesos and the groundbreaking ceremony for a water system project also worth 15 million pesos on January 16. These infrastructure investments totaling 30 million pesos serve as concrete manifestations of the government's promise to bring the dividends of peace and development in communities across the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. For years, he said, fisher folk faced strong waves and uncertain incomes, but the new facility would serve as a gateway to wider markets. He said a water system represents life and dignity and ensures that no family would be forced to walk long distance just to secure clean water.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has received updates on the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP monetary policy actions and the country's economic outlook, the Presidential Communications Office or PCO said Wednesday. This came after President Marcos met with BSP Governor Eli Remolona Jr. at the Malacañang Palace. In a statement, the PCO said Remolona briefed President Marcos on the Monetary Board's or MB's decision in December 2025 to reduce the BSP's key policy interest rate to 4.5% from 4.75% in October of 2025 as part of efforts to support economic activity amid easing inflation pressures. The MB, the BSP's highest policy-making body, also lowered interest rates on overnight deposits to 4% from 4.25% as well as an overnight lending facilities to 5% from 5.25%. The central bank likewise noted that its current monetary policy easing cycle is nearing its end, signaling a more measured approach moving forward as it continues to assess domestic and global economic conditions. During the meeting, the World Bank's outlook for the Philippine economy, which anticipates a recovery in growth over the next 2 years, was also discussed. The PCO said investment is also seen to pick up as public infrastructure projects resume and recent liberalization reforms further improve the country's business environment. To ensure long-term and inclusive growth, the World Bank emphasized the need for low-income and middle-income regions to continue growing faster than Metro Manila.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Wednesday led the granting of incentives to Filipino athletes who won medals at the 33rd Southeast Asian or SEA Games in Thailand, announcing palace-funded cash rewards that effectively double the incentives mandated under Republic Act or RA 10699. During the parangal at pasasalamat sa mga bayaning atleta ceremony held at the Foro de Intramuros in Manila, President Marcos hailed the athletes' discipline, sacrifice, and contribution to nation building. The president noted that about 2,000 Filipino athletes, the country's largest SEA Games delegation to date, represented the Philippines in the regional meet last December. Under the incentive program, the Office of the President will match the cash incentives provided under RA 10699, granting 300,000 pesos for gold medalist, 150,000 pesos for silver, and 60,000 pesos for bronze, on top of incentives from the Philippine Sports Commission or PSC, with support from the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation. Each medalist also received a presidential citation, while 10,000 pesos was given to athletes who won medals in other international competitions outside the SEA Games. President Marcos singled out athletes with historic achievements, among them Alex Ayala, the first Filipina in 26 years to win a SEA Games gold in women's singles tennis, EJ Obiena, who secured his fourth SEA Games gold in men's pole vault, and the Philippine women's national football team, which won the country's first SEA Games gold in women's football. Agatha Wong, who bagged her sixth SEA Games gold medal in wushu, and five-time boxing gold medalist Yumer Marshall joined President Marcos and other officials at the presidential table during the ceremony. President Marcos reaffirmed the administration's commitment to sports development, citing expanded grassroots programs, improved facilities, and stronger support for athletes competing on the global stage. The president was joined by First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos, PSC Chairperson John Patrick Gregorio, and Philippine Olympic Committee President Abraham Tolentino.
It is always an honor and a joy to be surrounded by high-achieving athletes like we have today. You are a shining example of what can be done with discipline, with commitment, with passion, with sacrifice, and it shows that we can achieve what others might think is impossible. Pinagdiriwang natin ngayong araw ang dangal, tibay ng loob, at pambihirang kakayahan ng atletang Pilipino. At sa pagkatapos ng kompetisyon, hindi naman ninyo kami binigo. Nakuha ng Pilipinas ang ika-6 na ranggo at kagaya ng nabanggit nga ng ating Olympics chairman, dapat mas mataas pa yan. Pero di bale, babawi nga tayo. At bukod pa roon, nakamit natin ang 277 medalya. Mas maraming medalya kumpara nung nakaraang 2023 at 2021 na SEA Games. Buong pagmamalaki namin kinikilala ang husay at galing na ipinamalas ninyo. Ngunit, may medalya man o wala, panalo kayong lahat sa puso ng isang bayanang Pilipino. Maraming salamat.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, let us temporarily interrupt our Dateline Malacañang news to give way to the speech of Executive Secretary Ralph Recto as he represents Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. in the attendance to the awarding ceremony of the Outstanding Young Men or TOYM 2025 at the Kalayaan Hall in the Malacañang Palace.
The third, Solicitor General Attorney Darlene Marie Berberabe, JCI Philippines National President Felix Benson Chua, our distinguished TOYM awardees of the Philippines for 2025, fellow workers in government, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. It is an honor to join you today on behalf of His Excellency, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. at the Outstanding Young Men and Women Awards 2025 awarding ceremony. While the President could not be with us in person, he asked me to convey his warm greetings and his message to everyone here. He is most especially proud of today's awardees, young Filipinos whose work reflects the values and aspirations of our country. Allow me now to share his message. Again, a pleasant morning to all. Since its establishment in 1959, the Outstanding Young Men and Women TOYM Awards has become a reminder that age is never a barrier to excellence. For more than 6 decades, the TOYM has recognized young Filipinos who choose to uplift communities and shape our country's future. The theme of this year's celebration could not be more fitting: excellence in action, building a better tomorrow. In this age of the bagong Pilipinas, excellence must be in our every endeavor so we can have a lasting impact on the lives of our fellow citizens. Today, we honor young Filipinos whose work has been driven by courage, conviction, and of course, excellence. We recognize Attorney Bagilat for using his legal mind to defend indigenous peoples and to ensure that their rights are embedded into our legal and educational systems. We celebrate Mr. Junicio, an innovator who partnered with 8 communities in Zambales to restore forests and build livelihood that respect both people and our planet. We also honor Dr. Aruta, a pioneer who connected climate change and mental health to build an institution that shines a light on how environmental loss affects our well-being, especially in the Global South. And we commend Dr. Onda for being the first Filipino to reach the Emden Deep, the 3rd deepest point on Earth, for leading scientific expeditions in the West Philippine Sea, and for leading critical research on marine plastic pollution and microbial ecology. Each of you truly proves that leadership demands a deep sense of purpose. And I am glad that you are all here to share that purpose and your talents with your fellow Filipinos. Through your work, and more importantly, the impact you have created, I am confident that the Philippines is in good hands. In you, we see an emboldened generation that is guided by purpose and committed to service. To our awardees, continue to lead with integrity and act with compassion in your respective fields. The nation awaits your next triumph. To the Junior Chamber International Philippines and the TOIM Foundation, thank you for keeping this tradition that challenges our youth to serve and succeed. To all young Filipinos watching, I hope these awardees inspire you to hold yourself to the highest standards in everything you do. Always keep in mind that excellence becomes possible when we choose to use our talents in the service of others. Again, congratulations, and may we never lose sight of the reason why we do this work, why we serve, and why we wake up each day, and that is to build a better tomorrow for all. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay ang ating TOIM awardees. Mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas. That was the message of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Let me congratulate our awardees. Your stories reinforce the importance of service, commitment, and care for others. Kayo ang larawan ng bagong Pilipino. May disiplina, may husay, at may pagmamahal sa bayan. Maraming salamat po at magandang araw sa inyong lahat.
You just listened to Executive Secretary Ralph Recto as he delivered Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s message at the awarding ceremony of the Outstanding Young Man or TOIM 2025 at the Kalayaan Hall in Malacañang Palace.
Dateline Malacañang.
Moving on to our Dateline Malacañang news, the Department of Agriculture attributed the sharp decline in food poverty in the last quarter of 2025 to the sustained government efforts to secure food supply and stabilize prices. In a news release, the DA cited the latest Tugon ng Masa survey by Octa Research, which showed a decline in self-rated food poverty from 49% to 30%, down by 19%. Octa Research said this represented roughly 5 million families and marks one of the fastest noticed improvements in food poverty perceptions in the TNM series. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr. said the results demonstrate that government efforts and interventions, such as the Benteng Bigas Meron Na program that aims to ensure adequate food supply and affordable prices, are reaching Filipino households. Chu Laurel said the president wants to sustain the 20 pesos rice program until the end of his term in June 2028. He also cited increased budget for farm and related infrastructures, including farm-to-market roads, cold storage facilities, food hubs, deep water ports, rice dryers, warehouses, and greenhouses to boost production, lower food costs, and increase rural incomes, which was approved by the President and by both the Senate and the House of Representatives. The DA said that while self-rated hunger rose from 11% to 16% in the fourth quarter, Octa noted that nearly 80% of affected families experienced hunger only once or a few times, indicating short-term or episodic food stress rather than chronic hunger. While economists acknowledge that sustaining the gains in reducing food poverty will require continued support for food production and price management, they also noted that the survey signals meaningful progress in strengthening household food security through consistent government action.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, or CFO, partnered with migrant organizations, non-government organizations or NGOs, and the Department of Migrant Workers or DMW to develop a model retirement community in the Philippines to encourage overseas Filipinos and long-term migrants to return home and reintegrate into local communities. In a media briefing in Pasay City, CFO Secretary Dante Clink Ang II said the initiative is in line with the CFO mandate to look after permanent and long-term migrants, which converges with the DMW mandate in terms of reintegration and in convincing Filipinos abroad to engage with the Philippines politically, economically, and culturally. Ang said the project, called Continuing Care Retirement Community or CCRC, would serve as a big economic boost for the Philippines and a win for Filipinos overseas who want to eventually retire in the country. Ang said the project will be piloted in San Pablo City, Laguna, and hopefully expand to other places in the country later on. The CFO said the CCRC is also envisioned as a social enterprise model where the diaspora and the migrants themselves are encouraged to own and manage the facilities. The agency said that Atika Overseas Workers and Communities Initiatives Incorporated, or Atika, will serve as the lead convener of the project and will lead the development of a technical education and skills development authority, or TESDA, accredited training center for health care services. The Atika board chairperson, Estrella Año Nuevo, said the proposed CCRC, set to rise on a 14-hectare reserve property in San Pablo City, is also being developed with the DMW, National Federation of Filipino-American Associations or NAFA, and the Sorol Baba Development Cooperative. The DMW, through its National Reintegration Center for Overseas Filipino Workers, will focus on the reintegration of contract workers and the promotion of the project through its workers' offices worldwide. The Sosorol Baba Development Cooperative will act as partner cooperative for land acquisition, while the NAFA will lead awareness and investment campaigns within the Filipino-American community. Ang said the initiative offers a win-win scenario as migrants are expected to benefit from a lower cost of living and stronger family and community ties, while local areas gain investment and employment opportunities. Under the plan, overseas Filipinos will pool their savings through a cooperative structure, allowing them to collectively own and manage the retirement hub. NAFA National Chair Mariela Fletcher said that there are around 4.5 million Filipino-Americans in the United States, of which she said around 30% already expressed interest in retiring in the Philippines. Año Nuevo said the construction of the CCRC is targeted to begin next year, with full development expected within 5 years.
Dateline Malacañang.
Finally, for Dateline Malacañang, the Department of Migrant Workers or DMW has confirmed that 8 overseas Filipino workers or OFWs are safe after a fire razed a plastic manufacturing company in Namyangju, Paju, Gyeonggi-do, South Korea. In a social media post, Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak said the affected OFWs were employed in South Korea under the Employment Permit System, a South Korean government program that enables small and medium-sized enterprises to legally hire foreign workers, including Filipinos, primarily in the manufacturing, agriculture, and fisheries sector. On Sunday, the affected OFWs met with officials of the Philippine Embassy in Seoul, led by Ambassador Bernadette Therese Fernandez, together with Labor Attaché Rosemary Duquez and Welfare Officer Cornelia Chanco. The OFWs were provided with relief aid and financial assistance, while the Philippine Embassy facilitated a passport application of those whose passports were lost or destroyed in the fire. Meanwhile, Kakdak thanked the South Korean government for its quick emergency response. He also noted that the DMW will continue to monitor developments and provide support to the affected workers.
Dateline Malacañang.
That is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.